In San Francisco's glittering night, an $800 million deal unfolds under the golden lights of the Bayview Grill. Powerful men whisper threats. A tech billionaire sits silent, and no one notices the tired waitress balancing plates until she dares to break the silence. With nothing but courage and a cracked phone, this single mother steps into a fight against greed and betrayal, risking everything to protect her daughter's future. Where are you watching from? Comment your city or country below. They say San Francisco never truly sleeps. Tonight, in the velvet hush after midnight, the Bayview Grill glows with soft golden light, polished marble floors reflecting the chandelier's quiet shimmers. Beyond the wide glass windows, the city sparkles, 1,000 ambitions burning against the fog. Inside, a deal worth $800 million is quietly unfolding. The air is thick with expensive cologne, the muted clink of wine glasses, and words sharper than any knife in the kitchen. At the center table sits Evelyn Park, an Asian-American tech billionaire whose reputation stretches from Silicon Valley to Seoul. Her tailored navy dress is unadorned, her expression impassive, hands folded neatly. Tonight, her greatest weapon is silence. At the edge of the scene, Rachel Miller balances a tray of oysters and empty tumblers, her black sneakers squeaking with every hurried step. The world rarely notices servers, and Rachel is used to the comfort of being invisible until life forces her to become someone else. She has worked double shifts all week, dark circles gathering under her eyes like storm clouds. Her daughter, Sophie, is 7, and Rachel keeps her picture tucked behind her phone's cracked case, a silent talisman for every 12-hour grind. Across the room, Martin Hale, with his slicked-back hair and shark-skin suit, raises his voice just enough to signal authority. Richard Coleman, heavy-set and red-faced, flashes a predatory grin. They're Valancourt's top executives, and tonight they have one job: pressure Evelyn Park into a signature she doesn't want to give. "Ms. Park, you must understand," Martin purrs, swirling his glass. "Opportunities like this don't come twice." Evelyn's silence is a wall. Rachel, pouring sparkling water with practiced grace, can almost hear the tension, like the old piano at home, one key out of tune. Rachel has learned to read the unspoken, the way Martin's words coil with condescension, the subtle squeeze of Evelyn's fingers around her glass. She's seen it before, in waiting rooms and welfare offices, in landlords' offices and PTA meetings. Men who think they own the world, and the women who learn to survive them. As she clears the appetizers, Rachel catches a fragment of whispered mockery. "She probably doesn't even understand half of this contract," Richard sneers. "All that money, but still just a quiet little girl from wherever." Rachel's jaw tightens. She remembers her own first weeks waiting tables, when one of the chefs called her Trailer Park Barbie under his breath. She remembers swallowing her words because tips were life, and pride couldn't pay for daycare. The restaurant's manager, a thin man with nervous eyes, gives Rachel a hurried nod. "Keep the drinks flowing, don't linger near the VIP table." "Just smiles, Rachel. No trouble tonight." But Rachel can't stop watching. She sees how Evelyn's fingers tremble, just once, as she lifts her glass. In that brief flicker, Rachel recognizes herself, the quiet fight to hold back fear. Her break comes at 1:05 a.m. She leans against the cool tile wall in the staff corridor, phone in hand, staring at Sophie's sleepy smile in the background of a birthday selfie. A promise forms in her mind, as steady as her heartbeat. I'll never let anyone make you feel small because we're poor. Never. On a whim, she opens her Duolingo app. Once, in another lifetime, she took a Japanese class at the community center. Most of it is a blur now, just polite phrases and formalities. But tonight, it feels like a thread connecting her to something bigger. When she returns, the boardroom drama has sharpened. Voices low but urgent. Pens clicking, documents sliding across white linen. Rachel moves quietly, blending into the edges. But she can't shake the feeling that something is about to crack open. That tonight, she is not just a witness, but a catalyst. Evelyn Park's eyes flick up, meeting Rachel's for the briefest second. It's not a plea for help, not really. But it's enough. In that sliver of silence, as city lights blink on the bay, Rachel Miller, the tired waitress, the single mom nobody notices, steps, unknowingly, onto the edge of a moment that will change everything. Before sunrise stains the sky pink, Rachel is already moving through a world half asleep. She clocks out at 2:43 a.m., shoes aching, arms sore, slipping through the city's fog like a secret. Outside, delivery trucks rumble by, headlights flickering on wet pavement. Rachel's shift is over, but her real work, the kind no time card records, has just begun. She rides the early bus home, pressed against the window, forehead cool against the glass. On her cracked phone screen, a little voice message waits. Sophie, lisping, "Good night, Mommy," before falling asleep with her stuffed bunny. Rachel listens twice, pocketing the sound for later. Their apartment isn't much. Second floor, faded brown carpet, the old elevator always stuck between floors. But it's theirs. Sophie's drawings fill the fridge. Sunflowers, smiling stick figures, a big blue sky. Rachel's uniform hangs by the kitchen sink, splattered with memories, coffee stains and laughter, a torn pocket stitched up with green thread. She moves through morning rituals on autopilot, packing Sophie's lunch, double-checking homework, tying shoelaces. Sometimes, Rachel wonders if her daughter will remember these small things. The peanut butter sandwiches cut into stars, the silly dance to old Motown on cleaning days, the way Rachel always finds time to braid her hair, even on sleepless nights. A brief pause. She sinks into the sofa, letting her bones go soft. Her phone, battered and loyal, glows with Sophie's photo. A missing front tooth, one pigtail crooked. It's just a picture, but for Rachel, it's the anchor that keeps her steady. She whispers into the hush, almost superstitious. "I'll never let anyone make you feel small, Sophie. Not for a single day." There was a time Rachel dreamed big. College, traveling, learning Japanese to see cherry blossoms in Kyoto. Life, as it happens, had other plans. She signed up for night classes when Sophie was 3. Japanese 101 at the dusty community center downtown. She remembers laughter echoing in narrow halls, her professor's gentle corrections, the thrill of understanding even simple phrases. It all seemed so far away now, with bills to juggle, 2 jobs, and Sophie's asthma inhalers tucked into every purse. Still, fragments linger, polite greetings, phrases about honor and truth, words that taste different in the mouth. Rachel tells herself it's useless knowledge, but something in her, stubborn as a weed, refuses to forget. By 7:15, Sophie stirs, eyes blinking open, arms reaching for her mother. They share a quiet moment at the kitchen table, steam rising from chipped mugs, the morning's hush wrapping them like a blanket. Sophie's world is still small, School, storybooks, sidewalk chalk on the stoop. Rachel's is bigger, messier, but she works to make that boundary invisible. Later, on the walk to school, Rachel feels the city waking up around them. Delivery men whistling, buses sighing, a neighbor waving from her window. She squeezes Sophie's hand, a silent promise burning steady. She'll fight for her daughter's right to dream, no matter how hard the world pushes back. The Bayview Grill looms in her mind. She remembers Martin's smirk, Evelyn's careful stillness, the hum of tension crackling between words. Tonight, she'll step into that world again, apron tied tight, eyes open wide. But for now, Rachel lingers in the softness of morning. Sophie's giggle, sunlight catching on the kitchen faucet, the scent of toast. She packs these details away. Armor for the battles waiting under chandelier light. Outside, the city is waking up. Rachel shoulders her bag, kisses Sophie's forehead, and moves out the door. Still tired, still worried, but anchored by the love that shapes every choice she makes. The evening brings Rachel back to the Bayview Grill. She steps through the side entrance, the scent of garlic and rosemary trailing from the kitchen, mingling with the tang of lemon polish on walnut tables. Her name tag is crooked. Her apron is crisp, freshly ironed, a small rebellion against the chaos behind her eyes. The main dining room pulses with quiet energy. Board members and high-powered guests cluster in pockets of conversation. Laughter a little too loud, glances a little too sharp. At the corner table, Martin Hale and Richard Coleman are already waiting, eyes darting toward the door as if daring the world to challenge them. Rachel glides between tables, her movements rehearsed and unremarkable to anyone watching. But she sees everything. The shift in Evelyn Park's posture as she sits down, the tight line of her jaw, the way her hand hovers just above the tablecloth before settling on a menu she barely reads. The two men waste no time. Martin leans forward, voice syrupy and sharp. "So, Ms. Park, I trust your legal team has briefed you thoroughly. There's really nothing in here you can't handle. Of course, sometimes a woman's intuition is worth more than all these lawyers, right?" Richard snickers, his gaze lingering on Evelyn's earrings, her posture, anything but her eyes. He toys with a silver pen, tapping out a rhythm that sets Rachel's nerves on edge. Rachel moves in to refill Evelyn's water, catching a glimpse of her reflection in the glass. A woman used to silence, to moving through rooms like a shadow. But tonight, she watches Evelyn closely. There's a flicker, a tremor in her hand as she lifts the glass, a small betrayal of the steel beneath her surface. Martin drops his voice, but Rachel, always listening, catches the barbed words. "You know, you're lucky to be at this table. Some people," he nods toward Rachel, just for a second, "don't get chances like this." Rachel feels the sting of the comment, not just for herself, but for every woman who's ever been made to feel less capable, less important, less welcome. She remembers the way teachers looked past her at parent conferences, the way bank tellers spoke slower, louder, as if poverty and stupidity were the same thing. As Rachel steps away, she glances at Evelyn. Their eyes meet for a heartbeat. Evelyn's gaze steady, Rachel's questioning. Behind that careful calm, Rachel senses a storm brewing. Richard, emboldened by Martin's bravado, leans in too close. "Let's be honest, Evelyn. The market doesn't wait for anyone. You sign tonight, you make history. Otherwise..." His shrug is lazy, but the warning is clear. The conversation spirals, numbers, threats, promises tangled with jokes only half meant. Rachel circles the room, hands steady, mind racing. She notices everything. The way Martin's lips thin with impatience, the subtle shake in Evelyn's hands, the nervous twitch of her fingers smoothing invisible creases on the contract. It's the same tension Rachel felt the night she signed her first lease. Alone, young, every pen stroke heavy with risk. She thinks about the whispered doubts from coworkers. What kind of future does a single mom like you have? A ripple of laughter from Martin and Richard snaps her back. Rachel glances at the corner, sees Evelyn's grip tighten on her glass. A silent SOS. And in that quiet, Rachel understands. For all Evelyn's money and power, she's fighting a battle Rachel knows by heart. It isn't just about contracts or mergers. It's about not letting them see you flinch. Rachel moves to the service station, hands trembling only when no one is looking. She tells herself, "You belong here. You always have." The chandelier flickers, casting small shadows over the table. A hush settles as Martin slides the contract across to Evelyn, pen poised, smile sharp as a knife. Rachel draws a breath, anchoring herself with the memory of Sophie's hug that morning. Tonight, she's more than a waitress. Tonight, she's a witness to power and the cracks beneath it. And somewhere deep down, she senses her role in this story is about to shift. There's a rhythm to restaurant work. Orders come, plates go, voices rise and fall like a tide. But as Rachel stands at the service station, her mind drifts somewhere else, pulled by memories that refuse to stay buried. The night air outside the Bayview Grill is damp with promise. Inside, the chandelier glows against velvet drapes, but Rachel feels a chill pressing through her thin uniform. She wipes down a tray, the motion automatic, her gaze blurring into the past. She's back in that cramped emergency room, Sophie curled on a plastic chair, fever burning her cheeks. The nurse calls, "Next," and Rachel glances at the clock. Her double shift at the diner is just beginning, the rent money only half made. Her heart aches with the impossible choice: stay and watch over Sophie, or leave her to chase a paycheck neither of them can live without. She remembers the guilt, the shame when she hurried Sophie home, wrapped her in a borrowed blanket, and rushed to work with her hair still wet. The memory settles heavy in her chest, the sneers from her coworkers, the way one server whispered, "What kind of future does a single mom like you have?" The question haunted Rachel long after. She wore it like an invisible badge, stitched into every uniform, every late-night bus ride, every moment she spent fighting for Sophie's small comforts. She still hears it sometimes, in the scrape of chairs, in the way customers talk over her, in the look of pity behind well-meaning smiles. She glances at her reflection in the metal coffee urn, hair pulled back, eyes older than her years. For a moment, she wonders if Sophie will remember these sacrifices, or only see the times Rachel wasn't there. At the corner booth, laughter crackles, too loud for comfort. Martin's voice cuts through the hum. "You know, some people are just born lucky. Others," he lets the sentence hang, unfinished, the meaning obvious. Rachel's hands tighten on the tray. She remembers a different table, a different night. Sophie's 7th birthday, celebrated with a homemade cake and dollar store candles. Rachel's gift, a promise spoken softly in the dark. "You're never alone, kiddo. Not while I'm breathing." She lets the memory anchor her. Every rough edge, every sharp word from the world outside only sharpens her resolve. She's spent too long swallowing her voice, letting others decide what she's worth. Tonight, Watching Evelyn Park, so composed, so silent, yet so vulnerable in her stillness, Rachel recognizes the same quiet battle. Power doesn't always mean protection. Even the strongest can be cornered. Even the wealthiest can feel small in a room full of men who think kindness is a weakness. She flashes back to the Japanese class, the way her professor spoke of giri, the duty that binds people, not out of fear, but out of loyalty and honor. Rachel thinks about what duty means to her, showing up no matter the cost, speaking up when silence serves only the powerful. A busboy bumps her elbow, jolting her back to the present. Rachel steadies herself, watching as Martin pushes the contract across the linen, his pen tapping with impatience. She breathes in, letting the pain of old wounds fuel her courage. The memory of Sophie's small hand in hers, the echo of all those doubters, swirl together. She feels the boundary shift, something inside her hardening, then opening. Tonight, she tells herself, silence is no longer an option. She moves back toward the table, steps deliberate, each one stitched with years of sacrifice and a mother's stubborn hope. In her pocket, Sophie's photo presses warm against her leg, a reminder that love is a boundary the world cannot cross. The chandelier casts scattered patterns across the tablecloth. A hush has fallen, as if the room itself is waiting for something to break. Rachel stands just behind Evelyn's chair, tray resting lightly on her forearm. She watches Martin's pen hover above the contract, each stroke a threat, a promise, a trap. For too long, Rachel's life has been measured in small silences. Tonight, she feels those silences gather behind her like a storm. Martin looks up, his smile brittle. "We're all set here, Ms. Park, unless you have any last-minute concerns." Evelyn's hand trembles as she reaches for the pen. Rachel catches the movement, the same tremor she's felt in herself, in moments of risk and decision. Something in her refuses to stay still. A memory flickers. Her old Japanese professor, teaching the difference between silence for survival and silence for surrender. Rachel breathes in. Her voice, when it comes, is steady and clear, surprising even herself. "Excuse me," she says softly, her eyes on Evelyn, but her words for the whole room. "I think there's a misunderstanding about a few terms in this contract." Martin blinks, irritation flashing across his face. "This is a private meeting. Perhaps you should—" But Rachel is already moving, stepping forward with the confidence of someone who has nothing left to lose. She picks up the contract, scanning the fine print, her finger landing on a clause that twists like a knife. "If I may," she says, "this section here, about the deferred equity transfer, doesn't match the summary you just explained. In fact, it gives your firm a controlling stake in Ms. Park's patents. The wording is ambiguous, but in Japanese business culture, directness is valued. Here it's used to hide an advantage." A hush. Richard shifts uncomfortably. Evelyn's gaze flickers to Rachel, something like hope struggling to surface. Martin's voice grows colder. "This isn't your place, miss." But Rachel doesn't flinch. She bows her head slightly, echoing the formal gestures she learned years ago. "With respect, Mr. Hale, I believe Ms. Park deserves to know the truth of what she's signing. Language isn't just words, it's power." She switches, for a moment, to Japanese, a simple greeting, a nod to Evelyn's heritage, a quiet signal. "You are not alone." The board members exchange glances. Some look uneasy, others curious. For the first time, the room's attention pivots away from the men in suits. Evelyn finds her voice, quiet but resolute. "What are you suggesting?" she asks Rachel, her tone threaded with caution and trust. Rachel lifts the contract, points to a page. There are 3 hidden traps. The non-compete clause is permanent, not 5 years as you described. The severance conditions tie your IP to the firm, even if you walk away. And here, her finger pauses. This signature line is for a holding company you never mentioned. All quiet maneuvers, buried in the fine print. Martin's facade cracks, frustration spilling through. "You're overstepping." But Rachel stands her ground, eyes steady. "Sometimes, when you've spent your life listening, you hear what no one else does." The room freezes. For a moment, the only sound is the gentle clink of a glass. Rachel, single mom, waitress, nobody, has just stopped a multi-million-dollar negotiation in its tracks. Richard leans back, eyes narrowed, studying Rachel as if seeing her for the first time. The balance of the room has shifted, subtle but undeniable. Evelyn draws in a slow breath, her poise returning. Martin grits his teeth, voice dropping. "You don't belong here." Rachel meets his gaze, calm and unflinching. "Maybe not, but someone needs to." For a heartbeat, time suspends, and in that fragile space, Rachel knows. Her silence is broken, and nothing will ever be the same. A current runs through the boardroom now, nervous, electric, sharp as the edge of broken glass. Rachel senses it in the quickened breaths, the hush that follows her words. Martin's jaw tightens, pen tapping faster, a warning beat that echoes around the long table. But Rachel isn't backing down. She reaches into her apron, fingertips brushing past crumpled receipts and mints, and pulls out her phone. The screen is spiderwebbed with cracks, the glow pale under the chandelier. She holds it up, thumb hovering over the play button. "I'm sorry, but I can't stay silent anymore," she says quietly. The room pauses. Rachel presses play. Out of the phone's tiny speaker spills a muffled recording. Martin and Richard, voices low and cold, talking in the hallway hours earlier. "She'll fold if we push. This is our chance to wipe her out. Get her patents, her name, everything. Just get her to sign, and it's over." Gasps ripple around the table. One of the board members leans forward, face darkening. The manager who once told Rachel to smile and keep her head down stands frozen, eyes wide with disbelief. Richard tries to protest, but his voice wavers. That's not..." Martin lunges for composure, but the cracks show. "This is a setup. You can't..." Rachel looks him in the eye, steady as stone. "I didn't set anything up. I just listened. And I remembered. That's what mothers do." For the first time, Evelyn speaks, her voice carrying a quiet authority. "My silence was not weakness, and I am not alone." She pushes the contract away, gaze sweeping the room with new resolve. The board members murmur, some nodding, others angry, but no one can ignore what's been revealed. Martin's composure slips, anger flashing through. "You'll regret this." Evelyn rises, calm but unyielding. "No, Mr. Hale, I won't. The deal is off, and your conduct will be reported to the board." Rachel stands a little taller, breath catching in her throat. Around her, the entire room seems to shift. She's no longer invisible. Her voice echoes, landing where it matters most. Richard tries one last time, desperation tinting his words. This is outrageous. She's just a waitress, but it's too late. The truth hangs in the air, undeniable. Rachel tucks her phone away, heart pounding, every sense alive. Evelyn turns to her, eyes softening. "Thank you." Rachel nods, unsure if she can trust her own voice, but inside she feels something fierce. Relief, pride, a strange new hope. Outside, the city pulses with life. Inside, a single mother has turned the tide with nothing but her courage and a cracked old phone. And from this night forward, everyone in that room will remember her name. The recording's echo still lingers as the boardroom begins to fracture. Martin's face is flushed, his bravado slipping with each tick of the clock. Richard's mouth opens, then closes, lost for words for perhaps the first time in his life. The air feels brittle, every gaze fixed on the men who, just minutes before, controlled the room. Evelyn remains standing, dignity gathering around her like a cloak. She faces the board members, some whispering, some clearly angered by the revelation. "I trust the evidence speaks for itself," she says, her tone measured. "I came to this table in good faith. I will not be bullied. And I will not allow this company to be led by men who operate through deceit." A board member, older and gray-haired, looks at Martin and Richard, his jaw clenched. "You've embarrassed us all. There will be a full review. This behavior is unacceptable." Martin tries to regain ground. "Let's not overreact. This is a misunderstanding." But another board member interrupts, voice sharp. "I heard the recording. That isn't misunderstanding. That's malice. We expect better. We demand better." Richard's composure cracks completely. He snaps. "What? You're taking her word over ours? She's just a—" The sentence hangs, unfinished, shameful. The room turns cold. Evelyn's gaze never wavers. She's the only one here tonight who acted with integrity. Rachel stands by the wall, quiet but unafraid, letting the truth settle. For years, she's lived with people talking over her, deciding her worth without ever seeing her. Tonight, that's changed. She has forced the powerful to see what they never expected. A waitress who would not be invisible. Martin makes one last attempt, voice rising in desperation. "This is a setup. She's after something. You think this woman did it out of the goodness of her heart?" But his words fall flat. The board, once deferential, now regards him with suspicion. A woman in a tailored suit, one of the few female board members, looks at Rachel, her eyes shining with something like admiration. "Courage is rare in any position," she says quietly. "Security is called." Richard's protests grow weaker as he gathers his things. Martin's shoulders slump in defeat. As the two men are escorted out, a murmur ripples around the room, part disbelief, part relief. A long-standing order has been upended. The old rules, for once, have not protected the wrong side. Rachel catches Evelyn's eye. There's no triumph there, just understanding. Two women, different in story but the same in spirit, standing quietly amid the chaos, holding a new kind of power. All eyes turn to Rachel now, the single mom, the late-night waitress, the unexpected hero who changed the entire game. For the first time, she doesn't shrink from the attention. She stands with her shoulders straight, feeling the tremble in her knees, but letting the world see none of it. The boardroom, once the stronghold of old voices and tired rules, is silent. Rachel Miller's name, once scribbled on a waitress schedule, easily ignored, now means something entirely new. The last traces of anger fade from the room, replaced by something softer, a kind of cautious awe. Rachel stands near the wall, her apron still tied, the weight of the night settling over her shoulders. She glances at her hands, not quite sure what to do with them now that the battle is over. Evelyn gathers her things with unhurried grace, then turns, her eyes finding Rachel in the hush. "You," she says quietly, as if searching for the right words. "Would you sit with me?" The simple invitation lands with the gentleness of a hand on the shoulder. Rachel hesitates for a moment, then crosses the room, every step feeling new. She folds her apron in her lap, suddenly aware of how tired she is, how small she must seem beside a woman like Evelyn Park. But as Rachel settles into the leather chair, Evelyn doesn't look down on her. She offers a faint smile, one that feels genuine, not forced. "Thank you," Evelyn says, her voice low, private. "You did something tonight that I couldn't. You saw what others missed." Rachel's throat tightens. She thinks of Sophie, fast asleep at home, and wonders how she'll explain this night. For so long, her life has been a collection of small efforts, measured in tips, school lunches, bedtime stories. Here, in the soft hush of a boardroom, those quiet strengths have changed the course of something much larger. The female board member who spoke up earlier approaches, extending a hand. "Courage deserves recognition. If you ever consider a different career, you'd be welcome here." Evelyn nods, her tone turning more formal. "In fact, Rachel, I'd like to offer you a position on my global strategy team. Someone with your heart, your eyes, your integrity could help us change more than just numbers on a page." Rachel blinks, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "Me? On your team?" Evelyn smiles, a softness in her eyes. "You see what matters. That can't be taught." Rachel's mind races. The words of old co-workers, "What kind of future does a single mom like you have?" fade away, replaced by Sophie's voice in her memory. "Are you brave, Mommy?" She meets Evelyn's gaze and finds her answer. "If you think I can help, I'd be honored." Around them, the room has changed. The board members talk in low voices, glancing at Rachel with new respect. Martin and Richard's departure has left a vacuum, one that feels lighter, filled with possibility. Rachel sits quietly for a moment, letting the reality settle. She thinks of Sophie again, the girl who sees her mother as strong, even on the hardest days. If only her daughter could see her now, not just serving from the edges, but sitting at the table, a part of the conversation. Evelyn reaches out, resting her hand lightly on Rachel's. "You reminded me of something important tonight. That strength doesn't always look the way we expect." Rachel nods, a warmth blooming in her chest. She feels seen not for her struggle, but for her courage. For the first time, she imagines a future that isn't built on surviving, but on leading, growing, and teaching her daughter what it means to be seen and respected. The night air is cool and clear when Rachel finally steps away from the boardroom. She walks down a quiet hallway lined with city lights, her reflection trailing beside her in the polished glass. Her apron is tucked under one arm, her phone heavy in her pocket, a silent witness to everything that's changed. In the staff dressing room, Rachel finds herself alone. The sounds of the city slip through the window, car horns, a distant siren, the steady beat of footsteps. She sits in front of the mirror, staring at her own face, searching for the person she was a few hours ago. Her hands still tremble a little, but it's not from fear anymore. She thinks of Sophie, how she'd press her small palm into Rachel's, trusting, always believing her mother could do anything. Tonight, Rachel has become the woman she hoped her daughter would see. Someone who stands up, who chooses truth even when it's uncomfortable, who finds courage in unexpected places. She pulls Sophie's photo from her wallet, holds it up to the light. "We did it, kiddo," she whispers, a quiet promise in the darkness. "Our lives are about to change." The words hang in the air, fragile and bright. In this small, private space, Rachel lets herself feel pride, not for the job she did, but for the boundaries she crossed, the voice she claimed, the silence she finally broke. She stands, straightening her shirt. In the mirror, she sees more than a tired waitress. She sees a mother, a role model, a woman stepping into a new story. There is no audience, no applause, only the steady hum of the city, the memory of Sophie's laugh, the certainty that she is more than the world ever allowed her to believe. Her phone buzzes. A message from Evelyn. "Looking forward to working together. Thank you, Rachel. Let's build something new." Rachel smiles, her heart full and quiet. She looks one last time at her reflection, touches the glass as if to anchor this moment, then slips her phone into her pocket and heads for the door. Down the hallway, the city lights spill across her path, gold and blue and shimmering with possibility. Rachel walks into the night, her footsteps sure, her shoulders lighter. The world outside is unchanged, but for Rachel Miller, everything is different now. She knows the hardest part is not behind her, but tonight she's ready. For Sophie, for herself, for the promise of a future shaped by courage, not circumstance. A mother's strength isn't measured by what she endures, but by the lines she refuses to let the world draw around her. Tonight, Rachel redraws those lines. The Bayview Grill has emptied, its chandeliers dimmed, the echo of power games fading into the hush of early morning. Rachel stands at the front door, coat folded over her arm, eyes adjusting to the quiet street. Beyond the glass, the city is waking up. A bus rumbles past, headlights tracing golden ribbons along wet asphalt. Evelyn appears beside her, posture relaxed in a way Rachel hasn't seen before. They step out together into the soft light, two silhouettes on the edge of a new day. The sharpness of the boardroom is gone, replaced by the simple sound of their footsteps and the distant cry of gulls from the bay. For a moment, neither woman speaks. They linger on the sidewalk, the city breathing around them. Rachel glances down at her hands, empty now, free of trays and contracts. Evelyn tucks a strand of hair behind her ear, her gaze soft, open. "You ready for what's next?" Evelyn asks quietly, a hint of a smile tugging at her lips. Rachel lets the question hang. She thinks of Sophie still asleep, the sun about to slip through their apartment blinds. She pictures the kitchen table, Sophie's drawings, the rhythm of mornings to come. "I think I am," Rachel says, voice steady. Evelyn nods. There's understanding in the look they share. Sisterhood built not from similarity, but from the ways they've each had to fight to be seen. They walk together down the block, passing the bakery that opens before dawn, the florist setting out buckets of sunflowers. The city is ordinary and brand new, every detail sharpened by all they've been through. At the corner, Evelyn turns, offering her hand. Rachel takes it, a simple gesture. One mother, one survivor, recognizing another. They part ways in the pale morning, Evelyn's car slipping into the flow of traffic. Rachel heading toward the subway, her steps light on the cracked pavement. She tucks her hands in her pockets, breathes in the city air. Salt, coffee, hope. Behind her, the neon glow of the Bayview Grill fades. Ahead, the day unfolds with promise. Rachel glances at her phone. A new message from Sophie. A lopsided heart drawn with a finger. She smiles, the world quiet and full. No one stops her for an autograph. No headlines trumpet her name. Yet for Rachel, everything is different. She is not just a server or a survivor. She is someone who stood up, who refused to be small, who reminded even the powerful what real strength looks like. The city swallows her footsteps, but the mark she's made lingers, in the stories told around boardroom tables, in the way her daughter will grow up believing in courage, in the silent bond between two women who dared to change the script. Rachel Miller, single mother, waitress, now walks into the light of her own making. Never underestimate the quiet strength of a single mom. One moment of courage can shift the whole balance of power, not just in a boardroom, but in a life. If you believe in the power of ordinary heroes, share your story below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more hidden lights.